So, our guest today is Stephanie Powers. And Stephanie is a photographer turned holistic health coach turned host of the Lightworkers Lounge podcast, which I've been a guest on. Stephanie Powers always had a vision that her current reality would be her life. A true free spirit, Stephanie travels around the country while recording her podcast and sharing her synchronicities on Instagram. She is the energy behind a community of 140,000 lightworkers and growing, and hopes to one day build Lightworkers Lounge into a physical building. Now, Stephanie has been a friend and client of mine for a while. I've been on her podcast, and we always have such fantastic conversations that I want to record every word that we say to each other because I think that everything that comes through when we're talking is just so fun and fascinating and interesting and enlightening. So welcome, Stephanie. I'm glad to have you on.
April, it is such an honor to be on your show, and I am so glad that you started the show to reach more audiences because you follow my Instagram. I still, to this day, tell people you've got to work with April. Like, what she's on to is so innovative in terms of holistic mental health. Everybody needs you. So I'm so happy to grow this podcast and help you reach millions of people.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes.
And I really do feel like so many people do need this work. And it's not even about me. It's just that every single person on this planet has something they struggle with emotionally. And just being able to have tools available to you that can just knock that out. Like, to me, it's like I feel superpowered in feeling like anything that comes up in my life, anything that ever happens, good, bad, or otherwise, I can get to a place of emotional peace with that. And just having that makes you feel like you can get through anything. Like, that's really what we're all afraid of. When we're afraid to follow through with our dreams, when we're afraid to do something that feels dangerous, when we're afraid to have our hearts broken, it's because we think we won't be able to get over that. And so knowing no matter what happens, I can emotionally get past that, then what's going to stop me? And I'd really just love to get everybody to that place of being able to know that they can have emotional freedom regardless of what their life looks like.
Yes, and this is why I loved personally working with you and being a client, is that you were like, all right, here we go. We have this. You have your issues. My goal is to never see you again because I want that you need so that you don't keep, because I think you said this on your website, like traditional therapy and mental health medication, it's just a Band-Aid on top of the issue. It doesn't uproot the subconscious belief that is sabotaging you. You know, I've been to quote unquote regular therapy sessions, and you feel good after the session, maybe for a month after, but then the trigger pops up again inevitably and you just spiral downwards, and it's just a cycle. But with you, I've been able to uproot those beliefs and never be triggered by them again.
That's really cool. Yeah, that's the beauty of this. It's like, it gets you to where you want to be faster. Mm-hmm. It stops that trigger before it begins. So, you know, like, once you know what your trigger is and you use these tools to clear them, you're then free from them from there on out. So that you can, you know, so you get it faster, you get it more permanently, and you don't have to go around being mindful constantly.
All the time and being triggered and sensitive. And
right.
I think what's really popular, you know, I've noticed this with Lightworkers Lounge community, people are looking back at their childhood and seeing what happened to cause these subconscious beliefs that are sabotaging my present. And so what I loved working with you is that we went way far back to the beginning. You and I even talked about, like, what did my mom feel like as she was carrying me in her womb?
Right. Yeah.
It's incredible work you're doing.
Well, the roots of our problems and triggers go back so far. Sometimes it's hard to even trace them back. But I think most people don't realize, because the focus in the self-help world and the spiritual world is so much on like, be in the moment, be here now, stop focusing on your past and all of that, that we miss that inner child work. We miss dealing with our ancestral stuff. We miss dealing with our past life stuff. And a lot of that comes up while we're doing this work. And it needs to be addressed on the subconscious level. You know, our inner child needs to be able to have their say about how they felt when we were going through these issues the first time.
That's what you used to tell me, is throw a tantrum. Go to your child and throw a tantrum. And I remember listening to like tracks and just crying like,
Yeah.
After release, I always felt so much lighter when I would walk out of your office, just float in my car. It never went away.
That's what I like to hear.
Yes, no, I don't know if this is a mistake or not, but I mentioned when we first started working together that, look, guys, I found an emotional health consultant that I can talk about my twin flame with. And I'm pretty sure like half the people that contacted you were like, April, help me with my twin flame.
Yeah, there were a lot of definitely people who were looking for help with their twin flame stuff, for sure.
I'm sorry. That could be a whole other podcast episode, but we can also talk about it now if you feel compelled. When I just did my live Q&A yesterday, that was in the top 3 questions most asked is, I'm in a relationship with my twin flame, but I think it's toxic. I don't know if they're my twin flame. And I'm worried about that. I've even kind of stepped back in my own podcast talking about that, because I think a lot of people are taking that phrase and running with it and staying in unhealthy relationships because you're meant to be with your twin flame.
I don't know about that.
What are your thoughts on karmic partners, soulmates, and twin flames?
Okay. Now, I don't know about karmic partners. You know, just by the name of it, I can assume what that's all about. But as far as like soulmates and twin flames and things like that, to me, a soulmate is just someone who's part of your soul family. And they're meant to come into your life. And when you meet them, it kind of feels like home. You know, you feel very like at peace and at home with them. Or alternatively, if they have played a nasty role in several of your lifetimes, you may feel an instant like repelling against them when you meet them too. So, but both can be members of your soul family. It can just be that sometimes, you know, you have a negative association with them and sometimes you have a positive association with them, but there's not usually the same intensity as when you meet your twin flame. You meet your twin flame, it's often like fireworks and it's just like, holy crap, this is amazing. And there's just all of this intensity and it's you know, everything's on hyper alert. And what happens with your twin flame is that just by meeting, whether you stay together, regardless, like just meeting your twin flame is going to set about a chain of events that will bring up your biggest triggers. So you may or may not stay with that person forever. And it doesn't even have to always be a romantic partner. Sometimes your twin flame is a friend. Sometimes it's a relative. Sometimes it's a coworker. It doesn't have to be a romantic thing. So you meet this person and there's just this intensity. And then usually one person will freak out at some point. Normally when things start to get serious, then one of the two people will freak out and try to run. And this person over here will be like, holy hell, what's going on? Why are they running? We're supposed to be together. We're supposed to, you know, like, and just have this sense of like, I need this relationship. I need to be with this person. The other person has unconsciously realized, oh my gosh, this is going to make all hell break loose in my life. And I'm not ready for that. And that's why they're running, because they're not ready to deal with their stuff. And normally the person who's staying is somebody who's already been doing the work. They're usually somebody who's already either on the spiritual path or has been doing a lot of self-work on themselves. The runner is normally somebody who has not done that and has not consciously committed to doing so. So it, it gets really frustrating for that person who's been doing the work or wants to do the work and sees, yes, okay, I will be triggered by this, but the runner is just going, no way in hell. I'm out of here. I can't deal with this. I'm not ready for this. So
okay, work for me.
yeah. And sometimes they come around and they do the work, and sometimes they don't. And that's something that I think the seeker person in the relationship has to be okay with, to just understand that it may just be that that person running away was the trigger that you were meant to deal with and the wound you were meant to heal in yourself. Because it's with twin flames, it's just like you are meant to trigger each other's biggest thing. So whatever your biggest thing is, your twin flame is going to bring it up until you deal with it. So
wow, that's such a good explanation. And I had a lot of people say, my twin flame refuses to do the shadow work. They refuse to do any work on themselves. And I've been waiting 5 years. What should I do? I just gotta let it go. Because people hold on to this idea that their twin flame is their happily ever after.
Yep. Yeah.
While passing up what could be good things.
Right. Yeah. I mean, a relationship doesn't have to be all fireworks and ethereal stuff. Sometimes it's good to just have a healthy relationship where both people are doing some form of the work, even if it's not the same exact kind of work, because my wife doesn't do any of the stuff that I do. Yeah. But we stay on a similar plane. Like, even though we don't have the same beliefs and she doesn't do any of the PS tech stuff or any of the spiritual metaphysical stuff, she still deals with her stuff and doesn't create a toxic environment for us to live in. You know, she creates a warm, loving environment for us to be in, and she grows alongside of me. So I think that, you know, that's another piece of what happens a lot of times when you're a seeker and you're either spiritual, metaphysical, have been going through a lot of therapy, reading a lot of self-help books. Like, it doesn't matter, like whatever that looks like for you. It gets frustrating when your partner doesn't do it the same way you do. But that just because they don't believe in what you believe in doesn't mean they're not doing some form of work. And I think that's a trap that a lot of people fall into. They judge their partner.
That's so, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I have a lot of people in the light workers community that say, my partner doesn't believe in astrology. And I try and tell him that our moon signs are why we bicker. I'm like, I know, everybody's on their own journey and their own path. Love means you let others voluntarily evolve. Just let them go.
Yeah. And they don't have to believe the same thing. And what really cracks me up about it is that most spiritual people would be really highly offended if someone tried to convert them to like a Christian faith or something like that.
Yeah.
But by trying to convince your spouse to believe what you believe, you're doing exactly the same thing. So you really have to respect other people's beliefs and allow them to live the life that they're going to live. The more important piece is there kindness? Is there respect? Is there love? Is there support? Or is it toxic? And if it's toxic, in every case, get out.
How would you define a toxic relationship? Because I think so many people are on the borderline of, do I have to be patient with this person while they grow and heal inner wounds, or is this just toxic and I need to leave?
Yeah, so I really feel like if the other person is constantly being negative, if they're putting you down in any way, if they're not being kind and respectful towards you, that is toxicity right there. That's a sign you need to go. And I don't care what they're working through. If they can't work through their stuff without taking it out on you, it's time to go. And hopefully someday they will learn how to deal with that without taking it out on other people, but you do not need to sit there and put up with their abuse while they go through their stuff. It just doesn't make any sense. And It
Sorry.
enables it.
Yes, and I was just having a conversation about that very thing. Is people were like, I just want to hold on because I know he or she will change and get better, and then it's going to really kill me if I let them go and then see them happy with someone else and they've evolved and they changed and they have a healthy relationship. But I think that's just ego.
Yeah, yeah. It sure seems that way. And honestly, I feel like if you are really meant to be with that person, that it will come back around at some point. But
Me too.
I've got a slightly less romantic view of love and life and things like that. And I'm forgetting who it was, but somebody said, I think it's Deepak Chopra. He says something like you could romantically partner with any one of a million people on this planet and have a happy love life. But people are all running around looking for that soulmate or that twin flame or something like that. And it's really about dealing with your own stuff. And the more you can deal with your own fears and your own wounds and your own ego and your own injuries and all of that, the better of a partner you can be and the more open you can be to other people and how they move through the world.
Yeah, so what you're saying is you don't just fall in love, and love doesn't just stay around. You have to work at it and create it.
Yeah.
This is one way that I really bonded with you is that our lives romantically are kind of mirrored. Like you were married young, right? And then you
Yep.
had a child, went through a divorce, and now you're remarried. I got married young, didn't have a child. We tried, but the universe said, I'm divorced. And just kind of sitting in that phase. I definitely want to get married again. I know I do, and I can't wait to have children. But, this was one thing I'm also excited to share with you because I worked through the money issues that we worked on together. And now I've realized by doing the PS Tech that I have this really deep fear of getting married again because of how hard and sad and difficult a divorce is. And you create this life and this routine around this person, and just the fact that that could be taken away and could disappear, it's deeply rooted in my subconscious.
Right. Yeah. So there's a lot of things that just came up that
I
you can
know.
work through. So I would suggest doing a belief blasters to get rid of the belief that divorce is difficult. And also probably a belief blasters on marriage is difficult.
Yeah.
So both of those, just to knock that out. Or if you have a belief that relationships always go a certain way, you could use belief blasters to, be like, I had the belief that relationships always, and then fill in the blank.
Crash and burn.
There you go. I had the belief that relationships always crashed and burned. You clear that and just move on. But definitely using the click tracks to move through whatever pain and memories that you have of that being negative, as well as whatever future fears you have of that going bad down the road. So, and then another common one that really tends to help people a lot is I had the belief that I was better off alone.
Ooh, I had the belief that I was better off alone.
Yeah, so
I have that belief big time. Wow.
I actually had a woman do that one, and she found this amazing guy within like a week and a half after we did that.
Wow.
Been together for they've been together for over 6 months now. And she was completely like, nope, I don't want anybody. And, I just can't deal with relationships. It's too messy and whatever. And she did that particular program, and also, of course, click tracked some negative past experiences from relationships. And yeah, within a week and a half, she found Mr. Right. And
That is
they've
incredible.
been running races together and doing all kinds of fun adventures. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. See, it works, those click tracks. Like when we did I Trust the Universe to Provide for Me, and literally within 48 hours, the universe showed me.
Right. Yeah. So you did a PS Tech positive on I Trust the Universe to Provide for Me, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And
Yep.
that's what I did. So tell me, what did that do for you when you did I trust the universe to provide for me? What did that shift for you?
Money, financial worries. Because as you know, we worked together when I lived in New Hampshire. I had lived with my mom after my divorce, and I lost a lot of money in the divorce. And I was really trying to get my business off the ground financially, but I have this deep seated belief of a lack mentality when
Mm.
it comes to money, just because I grew up on welfare and always heard the word, we don't have enough growing up. So that was deeply engraved in my subconscious. And I think it was holding me back. So you and I worked on that. And you remember, I was like, April, I'm ready to move. I think I have enough money saved up, but I'm so worried that the moment I get in my car and drive away, it just flies out the window.
Right.
So,
Yeah. And we actually did some rounds. We did some click tracks on the fear of that and then past experiences where that had happened. And we probably also did some belief work, like belief blasters on the belief that the money would be taken from you or the money would just disappear or that you would always end up back with your mom or something like that. So
yeah,
think I think we did a couple of those, and then we did a PS Tech positive on I trust the universe to provide for me.
yep, that's exactly what we did. And I am
Okay.
very happy to tell you, it's the first thing I said when I saw your face is, April, the universe has provided for me. Look, it's like 6 months later and I'm making money and I'm okay.
I'm
I'm
traveling
not
the world.
exhausted. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it really, really does work. And I've noticed that when things were okay and I had money, I was like, I don't need to do it anymore. But I kept doing it even when times were good. I
Hmm.
think that, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And interestingly, I also did that round of I trust the universe to provide for me. And that was 2 days before you mentioned me on Instagram. And like 10 new people reached out to work with me then. And then I sent you a thank you for that and you invited me on the show. And 70 new people reached out to work with me. Uh, and then every time you mention me, since then, another 10 people reach out to work with me. So
So
thank you
glad.
for that.
So welcome.
But, it's just been ever since I did that, it's been a pretty steady influx of clients when I need or want them, and often even more than I need at the time. So that's just been incredible. And I've probably only done it a few times, but I had spent like 2 whole years up until then clearing whatever negative beliefs and fears and things that I had, blocking me financially and success wise and all of that.
Oh,
But that's really a powerful program to program in, especially once you've cleared whatever you've got blocking that. And I think that's the important part, because we can go around trying to program in positive things all day. But if we have negative programming in the way of that, then we're going to kind of be at odds with ourselves.
yeah.
So we need to do the work to basically clear out I kind of see it like a plot of land in your brain, and you're clearing out all the toxic waste so that you can plant the garden. And you can't plant these beautiful flowers and things on toxic wasteland, or it's all going to die or it's going to mutate. So we need to clear as much of the toxic waste as we can first so that it doesn't reject the flowers when we plant them. So that's kind of how I look at that.
Beautiful analogy.
Thank you.
I visualize my brain with like all these black pieces in it, and then I uproot those black pieces and it's just emptiness, and then I take big bright beautiful pieces and like a puzzle put them in.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fantastic. And I'm so glad I can send people your way because it's changed my life. And I was really struggling after the divorce, emotionally, financially, all kinds of things. And I'm just so glad the universe conspired to bring us together. I want everybody to work with you.
And I want everybody to listen to your podcast. It's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, I remember we did like a little bonus chat. Do you remember that? We recorded the main
Yes.
episode and then we talked about narcissists.
Uh-huh.
And that is still a very hot topic. But again, I think people are grabbing that and running with it. In the first time someone triggers them or makes them feel upset, they're like, you're a narcissist.
Right. Yeah.
So what is a narcissist to you?
Well, I feel like a narcissist is more just somebody who puts themselves above everybody else. And
Subconscious.
well, yeah. So I don't think that they're consciously out to get anyone. You know, there's not this conscious sense of, oh, I'm going to make myself better than everybody else, or I'm only going to care about myself. But in their interactions with other people, they will blame everyone else but themselves. They'll play the victim to everything. Nothing is their fault. And their needs come above everybody else's needs. So that's really the biggest part with a narcissist. And I think at our essence, most of us to some extent have those qualities. And that's part of the ego, part of the ego's job is to put our own needs at a high priority. And then a lot of like the Christian and cultural programming kind of tries to push us completely to the opposite of other people are more important. Other people's stuff is more important. And it's selfish to practice self-care. And it's, so I feel like we need to have this balance because it's ridiculous for it to always be about everybody else, because at some point resentment builds up and all of that. But it's also not healthy to have it be only ever about us. Yeah. So being able to create healthy self-care and take good care of ourselves, but also knowing that when we're in a relationship with other people, when we're interacting with other humans, these are other humans with their own desires and their own needs and their own version of reality that we need to take into account. So, I have personally been narcissistic at some point. I don't think that I would necessarily have been diagnosed as a narcissist or a sociopath or any of those things, but I was raised by a narcissist, and unconsciously I chose to be the narcissistic person in the relationship rather than being the doormat, because those were the two options I was raised with. It was like narcissist, doormat. Which one do I choose? Well, the narcissist seems to get their way more often, so how about I go that route? Even though I couldn't stand him most of the time, I chose that route because I didn't want to be the one who never got their way, the one who got walked all over or ignored or whatever. So it wasn't until I realized that I was creating the misery in my life and my relationships with my behaviors and my expectations and things that I started to do the work and finally learned that balance that I needed. So I think that there are some people who are just chemically narcissistic, and some people who were just never taught to create. Yeah.
There's like videos and popular Instagram posts about this that say once someone's a narcissist, there's just no turning back. There'll always be one. Do you believe in that?
If it's chemical, perhaps. But if it's learned behavior, then I think you can learn your way out of it.
Yes. Oh, such a good point.
And I think what really tips the balance is when you finally realize that it's you creating the misery in your life.
Ooh.
And I think we go through a lot of pain and a lot of garbage and a lot of blaming other people for how we're feeling and not having our needs met and all of that stuff before we finally realize, like, oh, that's me that has that need. These other people haven't been behaving this way. These other people haven't had these needs, but I do. So what am I doing that's causing this? Because I'm the common denominator here. And I can't live like this anymore. And that's really the point where people have to get to before they're willing to change, regardless of what that change needs to be.
Yeah. Oh yeah, people are stubborn. The universe has to make them really uncomfortable before they change. Now,
Yeah.
speaking of narcissists, and so I am so worried because my mom and I actually recorded a podcast a couple of weeks ago talking about generational traumas. And it was a really neat episode where we discussed that all the women in our family have been divorced and attracted men who were toxic and abusive. And so here I am like, okay, I've been given this clean slate. I'm divorced. I can find someone new and healthy and just wonderful. But I'm so worried that I'm going to subconsciously attract a narcissist. And where this kicks in is I'm worried that I don't trust my intuition versus my fear. Is it my fear telling me red flag, this person isn't good, or is it my intuition? So what is the difference between intuition and fear?
Okay. So for me, my first order of business is always to clear the fear no matter what. Whether it's intuition, whether it's ego, whether it's my subconscious, whether it's past wounds, I always clear the fear first. Because the fear isn't helping you in any way. If it's still a problem that needs to be solved, it will continue to come up. So it's always dealing with those deep-seated past wounds and clearing as much of that as you can in connection with your future worries and all of that, so that you can approach whatever comes with a calm, clear head. And if it's the universe trying to give you a message, that message will continue to show up. But having a fight or flight response to that isn't serving anything. So you can trust that that message is going to be there regardless. But getting rid of the fear is a great way to allow you to be able to deal with things calmly, groundedly, and not having it come from this place of emotionality and triggeredness and all of that. So to me, that's kind of the thing that helps determine, is this just a fear or is this real intuition warning me of something? Get rid of the fear no matter what, because the fear is just going to make you sick. It's going to make you overreactive. And so when you have to deal with something, it's going to make you either afraid, it's going to make you burst into tears, it's going to make you fly into an angry fit, it's going to make you want to run away, but it's not going to make you actually able to deal with the situation in whatever way it needs to be handled. So then trusting your intuition beyond that, when it doesn't have to come from a place of triggeredness, is really beneficial. But they do overlap a lot. So it can be kind of difficult to tell
like,
that.
Your fire sign, like fear will make you feel like fight or flight. Like I gotta run, I'm gonna freak out, I gotta get out of here. Intuition is more of a soft ping in your gut. Like listen to this. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
And when
definitely.
fear, do you mean like use the click track? Like what are some ways to get rid of those fears?
Yeah. So definitely for me, it's the click tracks hand down, because it just clears it so much faster than anything else. I mean, I've tried using a million other tools to try to get rid of, negative fears and traumas and triggers and things like that. And the click tracks just obliterate it very quickly so that you can just move on and really see things as they are, instead of how your own perception and experience had taught you to look at it. So this just kind of gets that out of the way so you can see the reality of the situation and be able to approach it that way, instead of through the lens of your own expectations and experiences.
I love that. Yeah. nailed it. You answered that question way better than you did on my Q&A. I don't know. What does your gut feel like? All that.
Well, I mean, that's part of it too, is trusting that. But a lot of times that's where we feel the triggers as well. Like when we're triggered by something, our excuse me, our cortisol will rev up, and that will show up in your gut, and you'll get a knot in your stomach from that cortisol rush. And that's usually the subconscious just freaking out about something that it doesn't necessarily need to be freaking out about. Normally, what's going on when we're triggered by something or we're afraid of something, it's because we have experienced something similar to that in the past, and our subconscious is just going, uh-oh, we better be on alert now, because last time we encountered something like this, it did some damage, and that wasn't a good outcome. So we better watch out and be just really, really cautious and on edge to protect ourselves from that thing happening again with this similar looking situation. So that's normally what our fear is coming from, is just our subconscious going, oh my gosh, this is similar to something we've experienced before, so I better avoid it. When really it could be a completely different scenario. It could be a completely different person. It could be completely different energy. But because there is something that looks even remotely similar, our subconscious can see it as something to be afraid of.
And those are the things you helped me use the click track to uproot.
Right.
So I was no longer triggered by them. I would even recognize, like, wow, this would usually trigger me, but I don't feel anything right now. This is great.
That's exactly it. That's right where you want to be, and that's the whole point of doing this, is just to be able to really see things as they are, instead of through that lens of, uh-oh, I'm constantly under attack. I need to be on high alert all the time against that thing.
Yep. You know, another reason why I absolutely love working with you is I can talk about new age spirituality stuff, universe stuff, and you totally get it, which is so rare. That's why I love you. So I want to give an example and get your opinion on this. When I moved from Colorado here to Florida, my listeners know that last summer when I tried to do this, it just went up in flames. I think I told you that story too. Just lost my housing and my job in one day. And I was like, that is a sign from the universe that I do not belong here. So moving from Colorado, moving to Florida, the first day I got here is when we had to evacuate from the hurricane. And on the way out here, I left all of my groceries in Mississippi. Jeffrey, my dog, knocked all the water out of my car, so it busted on the ground. And, you know, my subconscious wanted to say, this is a sign that I made a mistake, that I shouldn't be going to Florida. And a lot of my friends also said, ooh, girl, that is a sign right there, a sign that you should not be in Florida. You should turn around. But now that I'm here and I'm settled into my home and I go out and make new friends in this new town, I feel so comfortable. It feels right. So what do you think about this new age stuff of people always saying, that's a sign, that's a sign?
You know, I've actually been pondering that myself lately. First of all, this last summer has been crazy. There were 6 planets in retrograde at one time.
July.
Yeah. And I've kind of felt a little out of sorts the entire summer, because I'm a Capricorn and Saturn went retrograde in May, and it's staying retrograde until mid-September. So I'm just like, I'm looking forward to, I think it's like September 21st or something like that, where it goes back direct, because Saturn's my ruling planet. So I have felt more tense over this last summer than I've felt in years. And normally the planetary stuff doesn't affect me much, but this, you know, like for, I don't know what reason, but that particular phase of time has been more physically tense for me, even when I don't have anything specific to be worrying about. But when that many planets are retrograde, things are going to get screwed up. People are going to be tense. There's a lot of things that are going to go awry. And that's just kind of naturally how it is. Like, And there's been all these solar flares and stuff too, and that kind of makes us a little bit clumsy, and it makes us a little more angry and more likely to fly off the handle, stuff like that. So there have been a lot of really interesting energetic shifts because of that have made things a little more difficult on us than they typically would be when more things are direct and going more smoothly. But when things happen to me, I look for what's the message here, what's the meaning. And I've been noticing that over the last few months, I've been, if I'm rushing around or something, I'll start banging into things or stub my toe or stuff like that. And then for the first time in 25 years, I got a speeding ticket the other day. I was just like, I can't remember the last time I had a speeding ticket. This is insane. What the hell, And going, what universe? What is this? And then one morning I was rushing around to get ready for work, and I couldn't find my phone. And then I found my phone and I grabbed it and I dropped it, and then the screen smashed. Now, how many times do you drop your phone and nothing happens to the screen?
Every time.
But lo and behold, screen. So yeah. So I'm going, what do you want, universe? What is this message? And I'm really feeling like it's a slow down. You don't need to constantly be on the hamster wheel, rushing to the next thing and the next thing, and driving fast and moving fast and grabbing fast and trying to, constantly climb as fast as you possibly can. So, that's the message that I was kind of taking from those multiple things, because it all really seemed to be about speed and rushing. So, that was my interpretation of that. Is that what's going on? Well, I don't know. That could, I suppose, just be a bunch of coincidences that they're completely unrelated or are just happening because of all this planetary ridiculousness. But I think that if you are in the situation and you're feeling calm and you're feeling good and you're feeling at home right now, then you're fine. And when you're traveling, things are always weird. Things are always in flux, like when you're in travel mode.
Yeah,
so
the whole hurricane thing, I said, well, hurricanes clear out energy. They come through and they stir things up and pull things out. Maybe I needed that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but listening to you, it sounds like I was in the same boat, just rushing. My mind was constantly on get to my destination. Don't think about anything else. Just go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that might have been the message for you too, of just take it easy. You'll get there when you get there.
Don't be a hurricane going across the country. What I was, me and the pug. I love that. I think that with a lot of people waking up and getting more acquainted with new age spirituality, some people I've noticed, they really latch on and make it their entire life. They read every single self-help book under the sun. They follow every single inspirational account on Instagram. And I worry about those people. I wonder why they completely go 0 to 100 and it just becomes their whole life is this stuff. And I always tell them, like, you're going to get burnt out. The real teacher is being out in the world and having relationships and meeting new people. Like, go take everything you're learning in these books and Instagram and go apply it to real life. So why do you think some people get so obsessed with self-help stuff?
Well, to back that up a little bit, I'm really feeling like what you're saying about living life being really valuable, because it's great to learn meditation. It's great to get all of these tools and things. But if you're just going to go live on a mountaintop and meditate all the time, you're not dealing with your triggers. You're not dealing with why you've had the problems in the first place. You're just basically avoiding. So you can meditate all day, but as soon as you go back into the real world or a societal thing, or a storm hits, or whatever kind of difficulties present themselves, you're just going to be back to square one unless you have dealt with those things. But, I think that's really what people are trying to achieve with all of that seeking, is trying to figure out how to solve the problems they have. And unfortunately, a lot of the information that's been out there so far has been just ways to cope. Hasn't been ways to actually fix it. It's been how to talk yourself out of it, how to be more in the moment, how to avoid those feelings, or just feel the feelings so they go away temporarily. They're going to keep coming back. So this is, to me, like the PS Tech tools are actually the first thing that actually fix the problem.
Yeah.
But I went through a huge period of seeking, very similar to what you're describing. So I was reading every self-help book I could get my hands on. I was trying every spiritual and energetic practice I could possibly try. I did everything that I could find to try to fix myself and my emotional problems and all of that. And all of that spiritual seeking kept leading me back to the mind. And the message I just kept getting was, if you want actual relief, if you want to heal yourself, if you want real relief for your clients, if you want to permanently get over this stuff, you've got to deal with the subconscious mind. And that's what my channels and stuff kept telling me over and over and over again. You've got to deal with the subconscious mind. So once I leapt into that and started using these tools, everything else just fell away. Now, yes, I still do some energy work on myself. Yes, I still occasionally will meditate or ask my guides for help or whatever. I feel like at some point you just integrate it all, and you don't have to constantly be looking outside of you for it.
Boom, that's a quote right there.
So you just, I think at some point it gets to a place where you're just like, I've already read this. I already know this information. And every book that people recommend, you pick it up and you're like, I already know this. I've already heard this somewhere else. I've got this. And so I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with seeking in the beginning, because it's really just about looking for answers. It's looking for a way out of your suffering, whatever that looks like. And trying as much as you possibly can be really beneficial, because it really helps you figure out who you are, what works for you, all of that. But I think where the damage comes in, where it becomes a negative, is when you try to push that on other people, or are judging other people because they're not doing it that way too. And, I mean, certainly I've fallen into that as well at certain points. I have had to use PS Tech to have an angry fit about the fact that my wife and son won't use PS Tech. And while I completely know that it would improve their lives, it would improve our relationships, all of that, I have to be okay within myself that they're not going to do that. That's their journey, that's their decision, it's their choice, and I can find peace with that. It's okay with me, as long as they're not being toxic, that they can walk their own path, I can walk my path, and I can be okay with whatever their choices are.
That's beautiful. That is real love right there. Full acceptance.
So I think that we have covered everything we set out to cover today. Yeah, we kind of hit a lot of different topics. So that was really awesome. It was so much fun.
I could hours.
I could talk to you for hours too. I've always enjoyed our conversations. You know, when you were coming in for sessions and everything, I think we typically went a half hour over most of our sessions because we just, yeah, because we just enjoyed talking to each other so much, and it was such a pleasurable experience. So I've missed seeing you one on one since you moved.
And the orbs that you always saw behind me.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Those?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I still see that sometimes, you know, when I'm talking with clients now, if, you know, if their guides or somebody is really encouraging whatever we're talking about, I'll see either little sparks behind them or see the orbs hanging out behind them. And it's just a great confirmation of what we're talking about and the direction that we're going in. So,
Wow.
yeah.
That's so awesome. And you offer online sessions, like sessions through Zoom like this?
Yeah, yeah. So I do that. And also with this podcast, I'm doing like a thing where people can apply to have a session on the air. So people can apply to do what you just did with me and have it be an episode of the podcast. Or they can also send in just a question. So they can write down a question for me to read and answer on the air, or they can send in a quick voicemail message question, and I'll play that and answer that, or they can apply to. I mean, I can't answer every single question that comes through, but people can send those in, and whatever I feel like the audience will really benefit from, I will answer those kinds of questions too. So, you know, I'm really just excited to be able to answer an array of questions. I want to work with couples. I want to work with individuals, and really just get everybody to a place of being emotionally superpowered.
Yeah, that's awesome. When you told me you were creating podcasts, I was like, finally, it's about time. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you. It's been a long time in the coming. I knew that I had something to share, and I feel like I just needed to wait for everything to come together and to know what that would look like.
Mm-hmm. Now, are you going to offer training so that people can actually do what you do?
I actually so she just, because I think it just cut out when we were talking, she said, be an emotional health consultant. So yes, I actually already have an online program available where people can take the training to become an emotional health consultant. So
really?
It walks.
Give me the details.
Yeah, so it's, I believe it's a 5 or 6 week program. I put it together a while back, and it hasn't been wildly popular because I haven't really been promoting it in any big scale. But basically, it walks you through how to get certified as a PS Tech practitioner, but then it also teaches you how I built my business as a local practitioner, and how to get clients in the door, and how to build packages for people, and things of that nature too. So it's like all of the different aspects of my work all put together and handed to people, like, okay, here's how to learn how to do what it is that I do and be able to present that to other people.
Oh my gosh. You know how many people in the Lightworkers Lounge community would die to have a job like yours? Helping people. Oh, we're going to have to talk after this because I want to promote it on Lightworkers Lounge.
Great. Awesome. Yeah. And, you know, part of it is that people need to have some background in using the PS Tech tools for a while before they do this. So I definitely wouldn't suggest that people just automatically go, hey, I want to jump right into becoming a practitioner. I suggest people either do my emotion boot camp, or just get a few of the PS Tech tools and use them consistently on themselves for like 6 months or a year first, so that they're really familiar with how to use them and how to apply them to different issues. Because you're not going to have good advice for people to use these tools if you don't have a ton of experience using them on yourself already. So that's kind of the place to start.
Such a good point. That's awesome.
But the information for that will be in the description for this podcast too. So if people want to become a practitioner, then, you know, they can look into what needs to be accomplished to get to that place too.
I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, April.
Well, thank you. I'm really happy to have you on, and I'm looking forward to being on your show soon as well.
You are coming back. People are going to be so excited.
All right. Well, thank you and have an awesome day. I really appreciate you being on.
Yes, you too, April. I'll talk to you soon.